Hello everyone and welcome to this second live Q&A on LinkedIn. So, while people are joining, can you do me a favor and give me a thumbs up maybe or some other type of reaction in your chat box so that I can see that you can hear me properly. And while people are coming in, thanks for the thumbs up. Okay, audio seems to work fine. Let's have a quick look at how this works. This is an audio event on LinkedIn. So in your LinkedIn, you should see the event, and at the bottom, you have an icon with a tiny raised hand. And if you click that, I can bring you up on the stage and we can have a little conversation if you want to. So already some familiar faces are in the audience. Nice to see you. Great to have you on the show. Before we dive in, please help me spread the word, and if you want, click the share button and maybe send this event to someone who could benefit from tips and tricks about AI patents, okay? Thanks a lot for that. So feel free to raise your hand if you have a question. This is a Q&A. And in the meantime, the usual housekeeping remark: I'm recording the audio of this event and I'm going to put it on my podcast for those who can't make it to the live event. So if you do want to ask a question but don't want to appear on the recording, just tell me and I will cut your audio out, okay? All right, now let's kick this Q&A session about AI patents off. There's already one raised hand by Stefan Burauer. Let's see, I'm allowing you to speak, so now you should be on the stage. Hi Stefan, what's your burning question? It says a problem occurred while allowing the attendee to speak, so I'll try again. Let's see if this works right now. Stefan, what's going on? It doesn't seem to work. I don't know. Now he's gone. Maybe he has audio problems. So anyway, in the meantime, I'll take a question I got by email before the event. So the question was, what is your experience of the EPO guidelines for examination? Do the guidelines contain sufficient information? Do you make use of them for understanding the examiner's objections or building your counter-arguments? And my answer is yes, absolutely. I use the EPO guidelines basically all the time because I think they are just a great resource to kind of fine-tune my arguments in a manner that's then digestible for the EPO examiners. The sections of the EPO guidelines I use most are, for example, of course, we are talking about patents for AI, so there is this section in the guidelines about artificial intelligence and machine learning. That's, I think, G2 3.3.1. And yeah, this section just sets out, let's say, the basic framework of how the EPO thinks about AI. I don't use that actually on a day-to-day basis, but it's good to recap it from time to time. This also gets updated sometimes when the EPO guidelines get updated. Another section I do use many times is the section about mathematical methods. That's G2 3.3. And the reason why this section is so valuable is that it has actually a nice list of examples for technical applications. So as you might know, if you read my content or consume my content, mathematical methods as such are among the items of excluded subject matter at the EPO, excluded as such. But if you use a mathematical method and you apply it to a technical application, then it becomes technical. And this section about mathematical methods in the guidelines has just a nice list of examples of what technical applications are, which are accepted by the EPO regularly. So it makes sense to look at that section and to see whether your invention fits into one of those buckets, so to say. Another section from the EPO guidelines is, of course, the one on simulation design or modeling. That one has been revised substantially based on G1 of 19. And of course, here we have the question where where in a simulation pipeline you can find technical effects taking place. That's pretty nicely outlined in this section about simulation. A fourth section I'm using frequently is about, when it comes to AI and patents, is about presentations of information. Because with AI inventions, what we oftentimes have is the question whether the output of the AI is actually patentable, is actually technical. And yeah, in many use cases, in many inventions, the AI produces some kind of maybe recommendation, some kind of output which can be presented on the screen to the user. And this section then helps fine-tune arguments why this presentation of information should be technical. And lastly, of course, from a very practical point of view, there's the section in the guidelines in the chapter F, I think it's F4, which nicely sets out concrete wordings of claims directed to computer-implemented inventions, to CIIs. So it makes sense to, if you file a European patent application, to just, let's say, conform to the EPO approach and draft your claims, the claim categories, in a way that is in line with the example formulations in this section of the EPO guidelines. So all in all, the answer is yes, I use the guidelines basically daily, and I think it's just a great resource to kind of understand how the examiners at the EPO are thinking and to fine-tune your arguments in a way that is digestible for them. Okay, so again, a quick reminder that this is a Q&A. So if you have any questions, raise your hand. I hope only Stefan has problems and you are able to raise your hand, and then we can have a little chat and talk about your questions. In the meantime, let me take another question I got from a talk I was giving the other day at WIPO. The question, but which I didn't have time to answer there. The question is, if AI/machine learning is extremely complex, for example, millions of parameters to optimize, why is it at all questions that it is not technical? No human being is able to calculate during their lifetime any of such models. You need a technically working machine to calculate the output. A better designed software or AI model is always affecting the technical machine, hence has a technical effect. My suspicion is that this question comes from a US practitioner probably, because I get this sometimes, especially when I do patent litigation for US clients, and when we then have the nullity proceedings and we are sometimes fighting about whether the German part of the European patent meets the technicality requirements. And US practitioners sometimes make this argument that, well, our model, the model of the invention, is extremely complex and that should make it technical. Well, I have to disappoint you, because at the EPO, high complexity does not make it technical. Rather, it's mostly about, you might have heard that before from me, it's mostly about the purpose, the application of the AI, which means the question is always, what is the AI used for? I was talking about that for the previous question. Now, and for example, if the AI model is horribly complex, but it is used for, let's say, predicting stock market developments, that's a non-technical application. And the AI model can be as complex as it gets, it stays non-technical. Now, on the other hand, to be more precise, there is one way maybe to even make an AI model technical, even in such a non-technical use case as stock market movements, and that is when the AI model is, let's say, so complex that you would need a special purpose hardware architecture to run it, actually. And if the AI model is specifically adapted to that hardware architecture, then that hardware architecture is, of course, technical. But that's then essentially a hardware invention and has not so much to do with the fact that the AI model predicts stock market developments. The invention would then be more about the efficient hardware implementation of a machine learning model. So I hope this answers that question. Do we have any questions from the audience? Feel free to raise your hand. We have 28 people in the audio event, so feel free to let me know if you have a burning question. In the meantime, let me address one question that I got in the LinkedIn comments of this event this morning. It's from Greg Rabin. Hi, Greg. Thanks for your question. He's a patent attorney, I think from the US. And the question is, now this is a little bit longer. Let's see. So the question is, I'm reading it out loud. Client files a provisional application in the US, which discloses features A, B, C, but does not include literal support as required in Europe. The client publicly discloses the technology shortly after filing the US provisional application. Okay, red flag. The client now wants to file a patent application in Europe claiming A, B, C. Is there anything that client can do to obtain an EPO patent, or are they out of luck? Okay, so complex scenario. Let's unpack this one by one. So the situation you are describing here is that the provisional application discloses features A, B, C. Okay, so we have features A, B, and C in the US provisional application somewhere, but you also said that the client publicly discloses the technology shortly after filing the US application. Now, I guess two things can happen actually. So, if the client has published exactly what's in the provisional application, I think you should be fine. Let me explain. So on the one hand, if the US provisional application has A, B, and C in there, but does not disclose A, B, C in a manner that meets the disclosure standard in Europe, that's the question you are asking, then you can't claim the priority of the US provisional, right? Because ABC is not disclosed there in a manner that meets the disclosure standard in Europe. But if the client's publication is identical to this US provisional, you could still file a European application in which you disclose ABC using the EPO standard for the first time. And the claim in that European application would still be novel because, well, the client's publication does not disclose ABC under the EPO's disclosure standard, right? Now, this was the case where the client has published exactly what's in the US provisional. Now, in the other case, if the client, let's say, has published more than was disclosed in the US provisional, anything that's in the client's publication is prior art, of course. And if that client publication discloses ABC under the EPO's disclosure standard, a claim of a later European application would lack novelty. So in that case, you are indeed out of luck. Complex scenario, complex answer. I hope that makes sense. So I guess the key takeaway is that in both cases, you cannot claim the priority of the US application. So the subsequent European application will have the actual filing date as the prior art cutoff date. And then it just depends on what exactly has been disclosed in the previous client publication, right? Okay, so I hope this made sense. I'm probably gonna recap this myself later on to see if that was correct. Okay, so any other questions you might have in the audience? Feel free to raise your hand. Maybe it's not working today, I don't know, because you are so quiet. The LinkedIn audio events, I think, are a little buggy. For me here, it works fine, but I've heard from last time that some people had problems, especially joining from their mobile phones. So hope LinkedIn will work on that. All right, so if there are no questions, I would say let's wrap this up for today. I hope you enjoyed this Q&A as much as I did, and I hope you join me again next week for another LinkedIn Live. Bye-bye.